Welcome to Paint Radio with your hosts, Andrew Dwyer and Kevin Hoffman.
Heck yeah, let's do a podcast. Paint Radio, the APC podcast. Welcome. We love doing this. I'm Andrew Dwyer, publisher. Kevin Hoffman, editor-in-chief, is here. Kevin, we got to pat ourselves on the back. I'll congratulate you. You can congratulate me because, man, this is our 100th year. And we did something, not that it took us, well, I guess it did take us 100 years to do this. We've never done before, which is, even though we've thought about this for well over a decade, we have produced our first Spanish language issue. And I say certainly we were both involved. You were in the trenches a bit more than I was, Kevin. How was the experience?
Oh, it was wonderful. This is a career first for me. I normally edit in English. I don't speak Spanish myself, but I got a lot of great help from PCA members and from the community.
Heck yeah. And got a lot of help from our guest, who was our contributing editor on APC En Español. Not that that's why he's on the podcast, but Juan Vasquez, co-owner and founder of Illusions Painting in Sand City, California. You know, I don't think there's an award for nicest guy in the painting industry, but if there were, Juan would certainly be a finalist. Juan, how are you? Thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Oh man, you're making me feel warm and fuzzy already.
Right.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Kevin. No, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure, man. And you guys been here in 100 years. It's not an easy task, all right?
It is. It really is fun. I'm not a huge believer in focusing too much on the past, but 100 years, that certainly has obvious value. It means that you have relevance. You wouldn't be able to stay in business 100 years if you weren't relevant, and that's what media is all about, right? It's are we producing content that engages the audience? And clearly, we've been around 100 years. We've done that, and you helped us expand that audience with APC En Español. For people who don't know you, Juan, this is why I love your story. You've got your own podcast. Tell us, before I forget, tell us about your podcast, Juan.
Okay, well, hey, it's not as an elaborate as you guys is, and we're not professionals. We're painters at heart. I like to throw that one in the front, right? That's my excuse. That's my shield. No, so something that happened to me a few years back, I became part of the speaker bureau for the PCA. The PCA thought that I should be speaking. I do not know why, but they thought so. So I said, no problem, I'm here. So we started traveling the States, and we got to meet many different painting contractors, the majority in Spanish speaking. And so we're like, how can we communicate with them? How can we stay in touch? And of course, podcast is kind of like the thing. And so it was like, let's start a podcast. Man, I got to tell you, it's not easy. It is so hard to keep and to record and to keep people engaged and to have people coming in guests. It's
so what do you try to accomplish on your podcast?
So mainly our podcast it started just as a way to introduce Hispanic contractors into our social media and to other painters. So what we do here is we'll come and we'll meet someone, let's say in North Carolina. We invite them to our podcast, and then basically they talk about themselves, their story, and then maybe like 5 of our listeners will listen to it and relate to them. But it's kind of like creating a bigger community. It's building a community. And I think this has been a good way for us to communicate with more. This is our second season, which, it's taken a lot of time. But now we're just working on not just creating this community, but now we're looking into how can we incorporate more value, more educational. So as people are evolving in their businesses, we want to bring these people back and kind of like track what have you done? How is this industry, how's this movement helping you? So it's kind of like a data for us, keeping up. So that's our intention,
Juan, the thing I love well, one of the things I love about you is your story, and I love the idea of paths that we're all on, whether it's a career path, personal path, and man, that is never a straight line. It's ziggy and zaggy, and I love because I'm gonna ask you how you got started in painting, but I'm also gonna jump ahead and that after you got started, I love your story about how you attended a PCA event, and that's really what opened your eyes about the possibilities.
That's correct.
Things you weren't aware of. And I think all of us as professionals, and certainly as painting contractors, it's one thing to start your business and it's one thing to be successful and happy. And I think the next level is when you start interacting with people, either at a PCA event or you listen to a podcast, you read APC magazine, you start getting exposure to people and hearing their stories about what they're doing, what drives them, what motivates them, what satisfies them. And then you're like, wow, there's so much more that I could achieve, whether it's money or happiness or success or employment. And that's what I love so much about your story. And we'll get to that. But let's start with, how did you first become a painter or a painting contractor? How did you first start your business?
So, I mean, I go back to Juan being 16 years old. My girlfriend decided to get pregnant. I don't know what was she thinking. God, you know. So, had to throw a little joke in there. So no, I was 16 years old when my neighbor was a painter. I found out that I was going to be a parent, and so one day I had a couple little jobs here and there, and then my neighbor one day I'm sitting down outside my house, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I don't know, like, 16 years old, you need a job." And he's like, "Hey, what do you want to paint?" He was like, "I think my boss will love you." I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" So one of the reasons why his boss loved me is because I was 16 years old. I can speak Spanish and English. So my number position was there is to communicate between my boss and the crews. So by the age I was 18 years old, I was running crews of almost 20 guys. And I didn't know what I was doing. All I was doing, just relating information from one side to the other. So that was the greatest thing for me there. I started making $6 an hour, and I was like, "Yeah, baby, whew, I'm doing it." This is 1998, and so I worked for two companies back then. One was all commercial. They did commercial all over the country, and then I moved from there and worked for another company where we did high-end residential. We live in an area where $150 million home is a thing. So we used to paint a lot of those homes. One of the reasons why I went into business is because I've always had a very adventurous kind of heart. I have a soul that there's more out there. I don't know what it is, but there's more. And so I went to my boss and say, "Hey, I had this saying, and I still have it. I don't want to be 60 pushing a brush." I seen a lot of guys in my area who I've seen them 20 years ago, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm building this business and I'm going to retire someday." And I've seen them, year after year, they're 60, they're 65, and they don't have anything to sell. They have a list of numbers and a bunch of old tools, and that's all they have. And so that was my case. I don't want to be 60 pushing a brush. That's what the expectation of a painter, especially a Hispanic painter. So my boss goes like, "Nope, I have nothing else." I say, "Okay, I'm going to finish this job. I'm going to go on my own." He thought that I needed more money. So he came back to me. He's like, I was leaving, and these are big jobs. So I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to finish this. I need someone to line them up so I can move on." He's like, "No, why are you leaving? Do you need more money?" I say, "It's not about the money. I want to conquer other things. And if I can do them here in your business, then I'm going to go." Well,
that's bold.
I was in
for
the treat. So that's how I got to become a business owner.
So at the beginning of the career, when you were working with providing translation services for crews, I'm curious, was there any challenges to being a Hispanic in the industry that you saw that would be unique to Hispanics and not the same problems that other people might face?
I mean, the communication, something that, you know, something that I saw a lot was like the miscommunication. My boss will get so mad and scream at everyone because I told you. And then you say, yes, yes. But they didn't understand. They was like, yes, yes. But there was no understanding. So, so that was a very challenging thing. So he understood that. And that's why I didn't have to be a painter. I was a communicator. I was the person, I was the connection, and honestly, moving many years after, like, that's all I'm trying to do here. I'm just that little connection that is connecting this industry to this other side of the industry. And it's not that I know something that other people don't know, is that I just being able to put myself in places where I need it and where I can succeed, and I'm learning at the same time. So I find that, I kind of like that, so sometimes I do something right.
Kevin, we just did a podcast with Michael Chaney of No
Yeah,
Drip Painting in Ohio, and man, there's a lot of similarities between their personalities, Juan and Michael, and many other people that we've had on this podcast. Just very positive, can-do, optimistic people, and that's wonderful. And I think that empowers all of us who are optimistic, enthusiastic, to absorb hardships, to absorb challenges, because obviously being an entrepreneur that road is filled with challenges. I talked earlier about how you're involved with PCA. You're now on the board of directors of PCA. And for those who don't know, PCA, the Painting Contractors Association, an association for professional painting contractors. If you own your own painting business, there's an association for you that helps you learn. We love the PCA. How did you first gain exposure or experience PCA, Juan?
So my sales rep from Sherwin-Williams kind of got me into this. I've shared this story quite a few times already, and basically my sales rep, Don, super cool guy, goes like, "Hey man, I got to take you to," and I'll be honest with you, it was a little different. It was more like, I need to take 2 guys to this event. Okay, it's not like I don't care. It's like I need to take 2 guys.
That's
so
right.
I was the only guy. I was the only guy that went with them. We drove 2 hours. He promised me one of the best sandwiches I will ever have. He promised me $100 in store credit and the best beer I'm gonna go get. So I'm like, beer, money, and food?
Oh,
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I'd show up.
So I show up too, right? Hey, but to tell you what, we were in this place, and it was probably about 5 of us contractors in Southern California, which is nothing. There, as you guys know, Josh Abramson from Albright Painting,
Yep.
he was the speaker that day. He was the presenter. So they did their small residential repaint, talk to Sherwin-Williams. And then we had Josh showed up, and I still remember this. I was, this is 2017. And I remember getting there, you're a painter. You think you have some, everything. I show up there, and then I see this painter showing up with his backpack. And it's the first time I see someone walking inside with a backpack. Now I carry my backpack everywhere. But he shows up, and he's just talking about his story, how he started his business, and he started very young, and about college, and he's going on, and then he talks about PCA and this association. By him being part of this, it exposed him to many, many different things, and it helped him grow, change his mentality. That's all I needed. I was looking for something, and that was that day. I'm like, right here. I came back. I told Jose, my business partner. He's like, "You're crazy." I've always been the guy that's crazy. I've been called a lazy, the crazy, because I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. There's gotta be another way. I know the wheel's round, but can we make it faster, more efficient? I'm that kind of guy. So that's how I got introduced. So that year, I came back. I convinced Jose. We put, and this is interesting because I told Jose we were merging our business together. We were partnering, and I said, "Okay, Jose." It's like, we got to go to this event. He's like, you're crazy. We got no money. I was like, no worries. The company's going to pay. It was like, with what money? We have no money. I was like, a credit card. So I'm not going to lie to you. We put about $3,000 into this credit card. That's the best investment I've ever made. I'll tell you that much. So yeah, I can go on and on, but it's very surreal sometimes when I think about it. I don't think about it much, but it's those little decisions that we make that will take you to the next level.
Well, and now you're on the PCA board, so you've definitely committed.
It's so surreal. It's so surreal to actually myself be in front of these painters, giving the presentation that got me here. If there's anything that I can share with anyone that's listening, is my ability to change my mindset really did everything. You can have all the tools, you can have all the resources, but if you're not in the right mental state, it's not going to happen. If you're not in a place to absorb that information, it is not going to help you. So we have to do that change first in order for everything else to happen. So that's what I've learned.
And as I know that PCA is making a big push into Spanish language, and I know that you're a big part of that. So tell me a little bit about why the PCA is taking that initiative and all the different resources that they're making available.
I mean, we understand that, we are, over 65% of the workforce of the industry is Hispanic, so just the PCA, all of our, vendor sponsorships like, Benjamin Moore, Sharon Williams, well, they understand that this is the market, so we want to bring the resources to where they're being consumed. And I think that's kind of this whole movement is happening because there's a need. Just like how we're doing the Women in Pain, there is a need. There's a need to help these groups, elevate themselves, because we elevate each other, and the more we elevate these smaller groups, the more the industry is going to evolve. And that's kind of, in my understanding, that's why I said that we're doing this, because it's needed.
Yeah, and it's not, you mentioned the Women in Paint event. It's they're not having that event because women won't attend an event that isn't specifically for women. You're not having the PCA En Español event because these Hispanic contractors don't speak English, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll let you take it from there. Why are you having the PCA En Español event? Which, by the way, you might be watching this, viewers, after September 12th and 13th, which is when PCA En Español occurs in beautiful Anaheim. But it's coming up September 12th and 13th. Why are you having it, and what will attendees find when they attend that?
I think it's very important to understand the what am I looking for? The culture part of it. Yes, we can relate, we can speak the same language, but when we talk about culture, just the same as Women in Pain, yes, like you said, Hispanics, like this last PCA in Español, PCA Expo, we had first time ever, in 140 years, we had like classrooms in full Spanish. So we had 4 different sessions in 100% in Spanish. We've never had that ever, in the PCA history. So it is just inviting this other area of our industry, this whole new section of our industry, inviting them to be part of who we are, which is PCA. When we first talked about what are we going to want to call this? Do we want to, what is it going to be? Is it going to be a separate entity? I'm like, no, we want to be, we have PCA. PCA, it's the whole. Then we have PCA, then we have PCA En Español. All we're doing is everything that we have here in PCA, we're just translating everything to the Spanish part. So you're not listening or following anything different than what it is here. Same thing with the Women in Pain. We're just creating this little area for them to feel more comfortable, to feel more at home, to feel more welcome into this bigger group. And so that's the main thing. So putting this PCA en Español is going to bring the industry, that part of the industry that are kind of being left behind. So now they're like, okay, so, oh, I can be part of this. Oh man, I can. So this is going to really contribute to becoming a greater association, because in a couple years, once you have 100 attendees here that are going to go talk to their friends, they're like, yeah, the PCA is helping me. Once they see that they can do one little good thing in their business, they're going to want to, be part of this. And that's what's going to roll this wheel to keep moving and bigger, bigger, bigger. We want to see thousands and thousands of people at one of those expos. And I really see everything the PCA is doing right now is going to get us there in a short, a couple of years.
You also helped us out with the new issue of APC, and thank you again for that. You wrote a column, and the theme was very much around welcoming people to the table. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that column and what you were trying to get across with it. And then also, what's the best way to reach this audience? I think that's what a lot of people a lot of manufacturers are feeling is, is it email? Is it a magazine? Is it social media? It's different culturally for everyone. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how people can extend that hand out.
So something that we've seen is like as painters, and I consider myself, I didn't make it out of high school, so I'm not very, literaturely correct, or, mine is not in the books. Most of us, if you're a painter, sometimes you learn visually. You don't learn by reading or taking information like that. So for us, it's like, we're not going to read a whole column. Myself, I've never read a book. I've listened to a lot of them recently, but I've never read one. I will go to sleep if I do that, right? It's not in my DNA. So when we see a lot of these older painters, even the new painters who are coming up, I believe that their attention is going to be more attracted personally. So something that I've seen that has really worked for us is when we have these small Sherwin-Williams events where we have 20, 15 people, and they come in, and you're not really taking down a pencil and doing all this mathematics and this mesh, matrix. All you're doing is just, look, this is what I've done. These are the resources. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm breaking that belief. And now might take 2, 3 of them be like, wow, I have that. I can do that. So to me, I think is personally, you're going to reach more people with letters and stuff. It's very tough, but social media, God, like there's not a single painter that I go into these events and I talk to. I'm like, can you raise your hand? Who has social media? Who has Facebook, Instagram? And they all raise their hands. And I'm like, how many of you guys have one dedicated for your business? Guess how many hands I see up? None. They're on social media every day, going through their social media, but they haven't dedicated a page for their business.
Wow.
So,
That's, and that's why APC exists. Obviously, we want to be a resource for painting contractors, all painting contractors. And that's why I love your story about attending PCA. And it's really, all resources are about broadening your viewpoint, broadening your mind, because, not everything is, we don't just come out of the womb knowing everything, right? Continuous improvement, lifelong learning. We have to learn as we go, and we have to gain exposure to other painting contractors in this case to learn what's possible. That's the beauty of APC. You talked about how 65% of the workforce is Hispanic, and certainly the Hispanic population is growing faster than other populations. Yes. To what extent, if any, do you think is that going to have an effect on the painting industry? And maybe it won't, because the Hispanic workforce is no different from the non-Hispanic workforce, or maybe Hispanic painting contractors are no real different than non-Hispanic painting contractors, but that number is changing. What effect, if any, do you think it will have on the industry?
I really don't think it has any impact, any difference on the impact. So if I can share with you in my area, when I first started painting, 20 some years ago, most of the painting contractors were from Italy in my area. Why? Because, well, the tanneries, they came here when they were little and they went to school and the parents worked, in the tanneries, the sardine factories and stuff. And so they grew up and, whether they're doing firemen or working on the tanneries, but then in the weekends, they'll start painting. So little by little, like the side job became a business, and then now they were painters, and now they started a business. So, and when I first started, a majority of painting contractors in my area were from Sicily, Italy, and so the Hispanics were the helpers. So as years go through, now you have a Hispanic guy who worked for 10 years, and now he's got his business. So then now the sardine factories and everything close. So the migration of the Italians slow down, but the Hispanics is rising. So that's changing that. So that's the movement that is creating. So the guys who were the helpers, the painters, now becoming the business. So that's always been like that through generations, in this country. Now is just as a society, how do we evolve to bring this industry higher? Because whether Hispanic, American, Japanese, it's going to determine on how do we move with times. And right now, as you know, we're in a digital time. So if we don't move to that, I don't care who you are, you're going to stay behind. So to your answer, I don't think it really has a different impact. I think it just helps the vendors and people to understand and target or do things differently to target that those contractors.
And as Andrew pointed out earlier, I mean, so much of PCA and APC is about education and advice and helping each other out. I wonder, what would be the advice that you would have for Hispanic painters who may be new to the trade or trying to build their business? Besides, of course, make sure you have a Facebook page for your business.
Well, I mean, it kind of seems funny, but if you guys remember the yellow pages, right? So they say that if you had a business and your number did not appear on the yellow pages, you did not exist. And right now, in the next 5 years or so, if they can't find you on Google or on social, online, no one's gonna call you. I just really think that something that changed me personally when I went to PCA is that I understood the minute I got there, I always thought that I had to be the best painter or had to be a painter to have a painting business. And God, I was so wrong. When I got there, the one thing that I realized that the most successful businesses were the ones that were owned, but someone that was not a painter. This person was a business owner. He knew how to run a business. He understood how a structure and run a business. That's what really changed my understanding, and that's what's changing us. That's what moved us from really getting out of like, okay, how does this paint going to work, to understanding, okay, what is going to be my profit? How can I profit from this? How can I take this and then create more opportunities for my business? So I guess if I'm talking about this is we have to really get away from the technical part of it and understand that if we're going to take that step, we probably should start taking lessons. We should probably listen to podcasts. There's so much information. We definitely have to go to Overdrive and become a PCA member and take care of all these accelerated programs that we have, to have an idea before you go into your business. What is it that the business is going to require of you? Most of us don't even know what a business plan is, but we're going into business. We just think that by painting our way out of it, it's going to be. But no, we're going to be 60 pushing a brush.
The solution is not to just keep grinding and
Yes.
working. I mean, we should always work hard.
Yeah, of course.
But we shouldn't only work hard, right? We should continue to lift our head up and learn new ideas and be inspired to try new things and expand our business like you've done. I love it. Absolutely.
Well, see, I think that a lot of these new generations has a misunderstanding on the working hard part. Okay, an influencer, for example, everybody sees, oh, all he has to do is upload a video, and boom, I guess. Do you know how long it takes to edit a video? I have hundreds of videos in my phone that I want to put up there, but it'll take you a lot of time to go through them, edit them. Is it the right thing? You have to like research what you're doing. So it takes work.
Yeah.
It's
and that's one of the things I love about talking to PCA contractors, or I shouldn't limit it to PCA contractors. Lots of painting contractors who are effective. They're process focused. What is my process? What is my repeatable process?
Yes.
A strategy, a plan that I can implement that's repeatable, and that is how we get quicker and faster and more efficient and more effective. And you certainly learn those things by going to events and availing yourself of the resources like APC and PCA. How about this though? There's obviously so many. You talked about 65% of the workforce is Hispanic. What about for painting contractors who do not employ any Hispanic painters, and they wonder why? Why don't I employ any Hispanic painters? I should. Have I avoided doing that? Is that a choice, or is that just the situation? If it's just if it's an unconscious situation, how can I improve that? How should a painting contractor make themselves more appealing to Hispanic painters?
Huh. Okay.
Less repellent, because again, we all have to be objective, and how come why are all my painters white? What am I doing wrong? I need to be more appealing to Hispanic painters. How do we do that?
I gotta tell you, I mean, I don't think that having a no white crew is wrong. I mean, shoot, I know quite a few guys who have over 70 guys, and majority of them are, American. I think
that would give me pause, Juan. That would give me pause. We're doing something wrong if that's the case. Come on.
Let me tell you. So let me tell you something. They say that in order to catch a fish, you got to think like a fish.
Okay.
You know, you just have to. I mean, it's so hard to. I don't think it's that we focus on bringing the Hispanic painter. I think is honestly the biggest thing that we are creating is we want to diversify. I do not want to just have Hispanics in my in my payroll, on my payroll. We actually, these couple of years, we've had over 4 girls out on the field. The girls run our office. We've had more than Hispanic guys in our crews. So for me, I think it's not just the Hispanic thing. It's like, it's a culture. Like, how can I attract great people? To me, I don't care if you're Hispanic, if you're American, who you are. I just want you, like Nick, Nick Slavic says, good human beings. I can teach you how to do the work. I can teach you everything about the business, but I cannot teach you how to be a great person or a good person. So I focus more on that. And if you want to focus on the Hispanic, well, then maybe have someone in your group. Maybe if you're a big company and you employ several painters, focus that there's someone there who can greet them and kind of talks to them on their level. If I'm myself and I'm a white-owned, American-owned company, and it's just myself, I gotta tell you, some of my good friends are I don't know if I'm saying it correct, white, but we joke around. And believe it or not, there's some of the funniest guys out on the field. So it's just character. I think at the end of the day, it's just good human being. Yeah. Honestly, I think I don't know what else to.
No,
and you can get very political, but I think
No, hey, I appreciate that answer. I'm glad I asked. I like your answer. And you're one of the good people, Juan. This is why we have you on the podcast. This is why we asked you, and you were so nice and generous to accept our request that you be a contributing editor of APC, or the contributing editor of APC En Español. Thank you for making that as successful as I hope it will be.
It will be.
It will be. Yes, indeed.
It will be.
Juan, I love having people like you on the podcast. This is we're a Good People podcast, Kevin. Maybe we should change the name.
There you go, Kevin.
Good People Paint Radio.
I could get behind that.
Right. Yeah. And no, guys, honestly, I hear this quite often lately, and this is a great time to be in this industry. There's a lot of things moving. There's a lot of things changing. The amount of phone calls that I answered on a regular basis about people wanting to, either they're on their business and they want to do something. And it is so good from my part to be like, oh, what is it that you're looking for? Oh, I need some coaching. I need this. I'm like, hey, I know this guy, reach out to them. Oh, yeah. I'm looking for these resources. I'm like, there's a couple resources here. Go ahead. I can get online and I can just have a live and influence 100 people, 1,000 people, 100,000 people. So there's so much out there. So it's like the one thing that I can say to anyone who wants to either establish their business or grow their business, get away from that brush, get away from that job site. So yep. I'm not saying completely, I'm saying set up a time where if you really focus on growing that part of your business, dedicate 60% of that. Like say 60% of my time goes to the field, to everything that I do with my guys. But 40% of that, I'm going to work on finding resources, on my self-learning, whether I need to listen to a podcast, listen to a book. We've been able to establish a lot of things in our business after I read a book. Listen to a book. Once I listen to a book, I'll come to the office. I'm like, let's do this. And they're like, why? I'm like, because it says on the book, traction, profit first. Like those are big books that really have helped us as painters. We're like, what's a book going to do to me? What is it going to do to our business?
Yeah,
it does wonders.
It does do wonders. Juan Vasquez, co-owner and founder of Illusions Painting in Sand City, California, board member of the PCA, contributing editor of APC En Español, and podcaster. Is it, Los Pintores?
Los Pintores.
Okay.
Los Pintores.
That sounds better. Thanks for being on the show, Juan. Always enjoy spending time with you. Everybody else, if this is new to you, look, one of the beauties of being a contractor is you have a lot of windshield time. And so you have time to listen to a podcast. You have time to listen to a book on tape. Make sure you take time to be inspired, because, it's heads down versus head up. Our head is down, working hard, grinding, but man, we have to build time into every day to put our head up and think, where am I going? What's the direction? What is the purpose of all of this grinding? And there are resources out there for you. APC is certainly one of them. Yeah. Paintmag.com. You'll find a great article about Juan at paintmag.com and learn more about his story. Certainly listen to his podcast. And of course, look up PCA at pcapainted.org. Juan, thank you, sir. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Hey guys, thank you so much for everything. Like I said, please don't forget about PCA En Español. Nos miramos pronto. Se portan bien.
I love it. Thank you, Juan. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.